Welcome back to the 56Plus1 podcast. Today, we're going to bring a little bit of modern conversation into the recording here, and this is over the government shutdown. The question is, could one sentence solve the shutdown? I personally believe that all of this could be resolved with one sentence, and that one sentence has to do with only American people being involved in receiving tax-funded benefits. To recap here, the House passed a bill called H.R. 5371, which was the full year's Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act of 2025. It basically provides a full year funding bill with no gimmicks attached, no short-term patches, and now we have an argument at hand.
So, Eric, this is something we've done a deep dive into. The Democrats argue that it came with strings. Meanwhile, the Speaker, Mike Johnson, claims that the House did its job. And here we are at the government shutdown.
So what we need to do here is break this down and what the CR includes in its entirety. So first of all, like I said, a full year of funding for all federal departments. Here's the kicker, at 2024 levels. So these are Biden's numbers, right?
Right.
Then the other things were extensions for Medicare, rural hospital payments, telehealth waivers, and ambulance services. Again, still under the same 2024 levels, which were adopted under Biden, which the Democrats are fine with. The delays to Medicaid DSH cuts. Now, I didn't know what this meant, but for purposes of understanding it, DSH stands for disproportionate share hospital. Basically, these are federal taxpayer funds paid to hospitals that treat high numbers of low-income, uninsured, or Medicaid patients. That word uninsured there is going to lead to something further in this podcast. But the Republicans want to eliminate the fraud, waste, and abuse of these programs.
And let me interject here as well. I know you got
go ahead.
this topic you want to expand on, but I have a problem with the whole medical industry, pharmaceutical medical industry. So I have to carry insurance. We all have to carry insurance per
ACA.
Right?
Yep.
So I have to, without getting into the details, most people have to pay insurance premiums. Mm-hmm. And when they go to the hospital or the ER, or they get medications from a pharmacy, prescription drugs, they are paying a premium to have that coverage. And oftentimes the costs, because you're insured, are a lot higher
That they are.
than if somebody that's not insured goes in and asks for this very same prescription or goes into the ER. For example, if I go to the ER with full coverage of my insurance company, that might be a $1,000 visit just to show up to the ER that my insurance company pays for. Now, if I'm uninsured and I go to the ER,
It's
guess what?
$8.
It's $8. Right, exactly. And I don't know the exact numbers, but why is that? Okay.
So there's a number of reasons, but I think the bigger one is it's bureaucratic red tape, if you really wanted to sum it up into one phrase, and it's the dealing with insurance companies as well as their ins and outs, right? So they'll move some things up and other things down, and unfortunately in our political spheres, they seem to be heavily involved. Now, whether or not that's warranted, I think we need to do a different type of dive into what's causing it all.
Well, and that's just the insurance side of it. But now you're talking about this DSH, the disproportionate share hospital. These are federal taxpayer funds being paid.
Correct.
For people who not only are not covered by insurance, but aren't even American citizens.
That's the problem, and that's going to tie into the one sentence here and whether or not this could solve the crisis. Because, but we'll continue on, and then we'll unpack that, right? So what else does the CR that's on the table provided by the Republican include? It includes continued support for the community health centers and diabetes programs, as well as it continues with a monthly reporting requirements for every agency that demand better fiscal management and accountability to the American people's tax dollars.
So they're just looking for transparency. Hey, we're not saying you can't have the money, but We want to see where it's going.
Correct.
Be transparent. Where's the money going?
And that is that. Let's be fair here. I think that's important.
Of course.
I don't know who wouldn't want to cut fraud, waste, and abuse unless you're an abuser
Exactly.
or
right.
a fraudster.
I agree.
But lastly, the thing that's included in the Republican CR is a ban on earmarks from 2024 that are carrying forward. This is nothing new. This has always happened. So there's nothing out of the box or out of the ordinary here. Politics change, presidents change, houses change, and numbers of congressional representatives being on the right side, left side, or independent. This is nothing new.
Right. So it's comprehensive, but the Democratic argument is this. These measures will lock out Democratic priorities like ACA subsidy extensions. They allows pocket rescissions, aka executive cancellation of approved funds. It freezes clean energy and climate programs. It includes language that restricts healthcare access for undocumented immigrants.
So let's go back to some of those points. As you said, the Democrats are saying that it locks out Democratic priorities like ACA subsidy extensions. That's an interesting one, especially considering the context of how the ACA was framed, then rammed through without giving anyone the opportunity to read it or even argue its legitimacy for that matter on the House floor. So let's face it, the ACA itself has faced a good number of legal hurdles, and frankly, it flat out lied in a number of different instances. So my position on that is this is a result of the nonpartisan agreement that was passed under the ACA. So why is that same logic not okay today? Personally, if anything, this further highlights in my mind that the actual problem lies within the weakness of the ACA to begin with. So
and the government shut down over this as well, if I recall correctly.
It was a big point of contention. I cannot remember if it actually shut down. But let's not forget what Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, said on March 9th, 2010, during the speech about the ACA, or Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, right? She says this: we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it, away from the fog and of the controversy. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that's crazy.
Right. It's like a hidden agenda. Let's pass it, and then you can find all the caveats. Find out about the fine print.
And now we're finding out the caveats, which was my point about highlighting some of the weak falls. Now, had they had the arguments about it, it might have cleared some things up. But that goes even further into this and why the Democrats are pushing back. The second point of contention you brought up was, as the written CR allows pocket rescissions, aka executive cancellation of approved funds, considering that people voted to get the nation's spending under control, I think this is fair. I mean, and let's face it, Congress doesn't have the best management skill set when it comes to managing taxpayer funds. And the third claim here is, did you have something to say on that?
Well, no, I mean, it brings it back to that statement of transparency. You know, if they're going to get called out, or whoever, it could be anybody. If there's fraud, waste, and abuse, and people are going to get called out, and you need authority to end that, what are they hiding? What are they trying to hide?
Right. It's almost like they're being fed off of this somehow. Right. So that brings us to the third claim, is that it freezes clean energy and climate programs. So the bill is supposed to be clean of these climate programs, and these clean energy programs haven't exactly proven anything except that tax dollars keep subsidizing industry that has only raised our cost. And lastly, it includes language that restricts healthcare access for undocumented immigrants. Now, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry, but it should, because this is not right at all. And it's not a right owed to anybody that's here illegally. You broke the law.
100%. And, you know, you talk about clean energy and these climate programs, and I know we're getting off script here a little bit, but I don't know what you've seen, and I don't know what our listeners have seen. And let's take your energy costs across the country. I drive past these acres and acres of solar farms on my way to work. Mm-hmm. We go fishing out in the Long Island Sound. There's these windmill farms. All this green energy. There's all these generation mechanisms in place. Why is our electricity getting more and more expensive? Shouldn't this be reducing the cost?
That's the whole point. And to answer your question directly, absolutely it should be. One second. I'll take a look. I got to shut my phone off. It's buzzing. But that's exactly the point, and it's not. And so we've seen some controversy here in Connecticut about the whole argument between the executive branch and shutting down this massive wind farm in production out off the shore. This thing is 30 miles off,
Right.
20 or 30 miles off of Block Island. And Block Island, I think, is 22 to 28 miles away from our closest point of shore here in Connecticut. So when you're, I don't even know what the voltage drop would look like or how big those cables have to be that are laid down under the ocean floor, but they could essentially be stuck down there if these things do not prove worthy.
Is it just a show?
I don't know what it is.
Are they even hooked to cables? Are they just propellers spinning around on a tower? I mean,
Rich,
I hate to sound like that, but
right, but it's crazy.
Right.
I just don't understand, to your point and to your question, and the fact of the data and what it's showing us. Electricity rates have not gone down.
no.
So
And I just heard Connecticut is now the 49th most expensive state to live in this country as far as utilities and taxes and
so it's
cost
the
of living.
third highest,
Second.
second highest.
So
40, sorry.
following Hawaii, I believe, is the highest.
That's
But at least Hawaii has a beautiful landscape.
and I can understand Hawaii. They're limited
Right.
resources. They're on an island.
Islands, right? They're in the middle of the Pacific, so
So I could understand that. But here's the stark reality. So, I had to take a class called, it was for NAPCEP, which stood for Nationally Accredited Certified Board of Energy Practitioners. And you had to get this certificate. It was a pay-to-play thing. Now, don't get me wrong.
Right.
You had to, there's some smarts involved here. There's a lot of math involved with this thing. But the Earth can only generate 1,000 watts per meter squared, per nine square feet, basically. That's all that can generate. Even if you got the most efficient solar panel, it's not going to matter. That's the maximum. Our generation is going up and our usage is going up. Let's talk about AI. Now,
Right.
again, we're getting way off track. I want to
Yeah.
go back to this. So but just to conclude on that note, I mean, data centers alone are consuming so much more energy. Now, if the government really cared, they'd stop the AI. Right
well,
now.
and so it makes you wonder what's the point of all of it, because our electric bills aren't going down. We're using less. We're more efficient in our homes. Our costs are going up. What are they doing with the electricity?
I have no idea. It's not making sense, to your point.
So with this shutdown as well, the Democrats want an immediate extension of ACA tax credits that are set to expire.
So we're on segment 3, what the Democrats are fighting for. So I just ran through a list of
Right.
what they're fighting for, but
So the current standoff over the Republican is rooted in unresolved weaknesses from the Affordable Care Act, particularly around coverage gaps, Medicaid expansion, and emergency care for undocumented immigrants. Speaker Mike Johnson's CR delays cuts to Medicaid DSH payments. These are funds that help hospitals absorb the cost of treating uninsured and undocumented patients, while also pushing for language that would explicitly block taxpayer-funded health care for those unlawfully present. Democrats argue that had the ACA been stronger in these areas, there'd be no need to fight over patchwork fixes like extending Affordable Care Act tax credits, which are set to expire and could spike premiums for millions. And to your point, Eric, this brings us back to the infamous Pelosi quote: "We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it." Seems totally backwards to me. Today, we see that it wasn't taken out of context. It foreshadowed the very problem we're in now. Structural gaps in healthcare law have become political flashpoints in a government funding crisis. The second thing they want is a reversal of GOP Medicaid cuts from the summer's One Big Beautiful Bill.
okay, so I got to hear the details on this one.
So, in the summer of 25, House Republicans passed the One Big Beautiful Bill. We've all heard about it on the news. It included significant proposed cuts to Medicaid. The cuts targeted federal matching funds for states, tightened eligibility rules, and reduced funding for outreach and enrollment programs. These are moves Republicans framed as cost-saving reforms. Also, they talked about the fraud, waste, and abuse. Democrats argue that these provisions would disproportionately harm low-income families, rural hospitals, and children's health programs, especially in states that didn't expand Medicaid under the ACA. In the current CR standoff, Democrats are demanding a full reversal of those Medicaid cuts, insisting they be stripped from any funding deal before reopening the government.
So, and we all know that one's not going to happen. And this is the entire point the Republicans have been trying to make. They're not going to move from this one. But then again, if the Democrats incorporated language for American citizens only, I think they'd be hard pressed to refute it. I mean, they'd have a lot of pushback from people of their own party and saying, "All right, guys, well then, I think that's at least acceptable if they've met the demand there, and we're taking care of America."
100%, in my opinion. I mean, these are supposed to be the voices of Americans, and I don't know many people, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, that you could go and ask and say, should illegal immigrants be receiving your taxpayer money? Maybe they say it to your face. Some people would say, yeah, they can. But in reality, I don't think that's the truth.
And I'd like to see that myself.
Right. Open your home up. So the third matter the Democrats are fighting is guardrails against pocket rescissions. Here's what that means. Pocket rescissions are executive actions that allow the president to cancel or withhold congressionally approved funds without a formal vote, an executive order. The Dems argue this undermines legislative authority and creates uncertainty for agencies relying on stable budgets. Pocket rescissions are one of the few tools the executive branch can use to swiftly cut unnecessary or duplicative programs, especially when Congress is gridlocked. Limiting that authority could preserve bloated line items and weaken the government's ability to respond to fiscal management in real time.
So I could kind of agree with the Democrats here on the legislative authority and power of the purse, but the fact of the matter is this is a legal standing since the adoption of something called the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. And this bill was enacted to reinforce Congress's constitutional power of the purse and to curb executive overreach in federal spending. But it requires the president to formally notify Congress when proposing to rescind or cancel or defer funds that have already been appropriated. Specifically, the president must submit a special message identifying the funds and the reasons for the rescission, and Congress then has 45 days to act on this, either approve it or deny the cancellation through legislation. But during that window, the funds may be temporarily withheld, but must be released if Congress does not act.
So, in other words, in a government shutdown, the executive,
Has the
who
power.
is the president, has the power. If they can't agree, then they're not doing their jobs.
Correct. And they're giving him the power.
So
by
this
doing
is a safety net. This is a safety net for, well, a gridlocked house, basically, is what it is.
And that's a law that they passed,
Right.
again, through Congress. But this law was a direct response to Nixon's practice of impounding funds without congressional approval. And it established clear procedures to prevent unilateral executive budget cuts. While the act allows temporary withholding, it does not authorize pocket rescissions, which is a controversial tactic where the funds are withheld so close to their expiration that Congress cannot respond, effectively canceling them without a vote. So then, what's the problem here?
So Democrats are concerned that the executive branch is using the Impoundment Control Act's temporary withholding provision to execute pocket rescissions in a way that sidesteps Congress. While the law requires the president to notify Congress and gives lawmakers 45 days to approve or reject a rescission, a pocket rescission occurs when funds are withheld so close to their expiration date that Congress has no practical time to act. This tactic effectively cancels the funding without a vote, undermining the legislative branch's constitutional power of the purse. Democrats argue that this violates the spirit, if not the letter, of the Empowerment Control Act and sets a dangerous precedent for unilateral budget control. Their push for guardrails is the CR is meant to block this maneuver and reassert congressional authority over appropriations. Even though the American people elected a president who promised to reduce waste, fraud, and spending, the tension lies in balancing executive efficiency with legislative oversight. So I do agree to that point where if that's a tactic that's being used, that's not the right way to do it.
I agree, and I think
right.
that's a fair argument. However, my question now becomes this. Have the Democrats been consistent on these guardrails?
No, that's the thing. It's selective outrage. While Democrats have condemned pocket rescissions as unconstitutional, they've been less vocal when executive discretion benefits their own policy goals. For example, during the Obama administration, temporary deferrals and strategic delays in spending were used to manage budget priorities without triggering the same level of internal scrutiny. As of recent, there's been a push for stricter guardrails.
Which I could agree with.
Absolutely. In the current CR fight, Democrats are demanding explicit language to block pocket rescissions. This is partly in response to Trump's 2025 rescission maneuver, where $9.4 billion in unobligated funds were withheld late in the fiscal year, effectively canceling them without a vote.
Okay, so here's where I do agree.
It's a loophole.
But look at that. What you just said:
Right.
$9.4 billion in unobligated funds. I mean, it's a slush fund.
Right.
Well, if the president should have any control over anything, it should be that.
Well, I agree.
So that's an area I think either A, shouldn't exist at all, or B, sure, the president can step in if there's unobligated funds. So here's the issue in itself. If anyone is serious about resolving things, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, but things like this, then resolve it. Why are they waiting till now to bring it up? So don't use it as a tool when it works in your favor and only in your favor. At the end of the day, we the people need consistency and we need accountability. Do you agree?
Absolutely, 100%. That's why it's so frustrating for us. You know, we say we're the little guy, but we the people should demand consistency from our elected officials. So here's the fourth point the Dems are demanding: restoration of environmental and energy funding.
Okay, what does that one mean?
So we'd basically touch on this, but the Democrats are calling for the restoration of environmental and energy funding that was reduced or excluded in the Republican-led CR. Key programs affected include clean energy research, climate resilience initiatives, and grants administered by the Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency. These cuts would stall progress on emissions reduction, renewable energy deployment, and environmental justice efforts in vulnerable communities. Democrats argue that restoring this funding is essential to meet national climate goals and maintain U.S. leadership in sustainable energy innovation.
Okay, but now they're off track because the brass tacks is this. This is about keeping the government open. That's all this is about. Meanwhile, the Democrats are demanding the restoration of environmental and energy funding that Republicans trimmed in the original CR. In other words, grants for legal energy, climate resilience, and EPA pet projects. They say it's about saving the planet, but the ledger reads more like taxpayer-funded scavenger hunts for solar subsidies, electric bus bailouts, and consultants fluent in carbon equity jargon. Never mind the multiple audits that have flagged waste, fraud, and abuse and in these programs, from inflated invoices to ghost projects that never broke ground. This is the same party that couldn't pass a climate bill without stuffing it with 300 pages of pork, and now they're calling fiscal restraint a moral crisis. I'm just not buying it. They got me on the whole clean energy one the first time. They're not doing it again.
Well, and that goes back to the $50 light bulb. You know, it's where are these funds going? Whose pockets are getting greased? What companies are supporting this green energy? But there's more. That brings us to the fifth point, the Democrats' argument: a bipartisan negotiation process, not a unilateral bill.
Rich, that's the hill the Republicans are willing to die on here. And they should, because that's how the country works. They didn't make it up. The House majority reflects the voters' will. That's why the people voted for them. The CR is a product of that mandate. It's a non-starter in my mind, and it's the finish line at the end of the day. I mean, this is what the people voted for. Spending has been a runaway train for a long time now, and I think we both agree that fraud, waste, and abuse needs to stop.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to this the flashpoint sentence here. So in my mind, I think if the Dems were serious and really wanted to negotiate, they'd negotiate on this one line. And here's the line that, in my opinion, is holding everything up. Are you ready? It's something to this effect. I'm not saying this should be the exact language, but it should be to this effect. No taxpayer funds shall be used to provide taxpayer-funded benefits, health care or otherwise, to individuals who are unlawfully present in the United States. Very simple.
That sentence is the flashpoint, Eric. Republicans say it's about fiscal responsibility. Democrats say it's a moral and public health failure. It would block undocumented immigrants from accessing Medicaid, ACA subsidies, and emergency reimbursements.
But at the same time, it's a clear boundary. It's overwhelmingly clear. Voters don't want their tax dollars funding care for those here illegally. This isn't a matter of cruelty. It's a matter of clarity. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. If you disagree, that's fine. Then open up a fund or some sort of pact that you contribute your own money to. If you want to support this stuff with your own hearts, do it with your own heart's content. And that's entirely up to you to do it. And I wouldn't stop you. I wouldn't even care. But the point is, do it. Don't force me to spend something on something I'm dead set against.
Absolutely.
And is not defined in any of the legislation's roles, responsibilities, or acumen in anywhere.
And just like you said, the people have spoken. You know, the country turned. We have a majority of Republicans that support this bill in the government. They are elected by the people. So if Democrats would just agree to the sentence, no taxpayer funds shall be used to provide taxpayer-funded benefits to individuals who are unlawfully present in the United States, the shutdown stands a very high chance of ending sooner than later, but it would come at a cost. The Democrats would lose leverage on ACA and Medicaid. This would set precedent for future restrictions. Political fallout from progressive constituencies.
Well, I mean, there's a couple points there that I really don't particularly care about, but I'm going to argue that it would restore government operations, stabilize funding, and honor the House's legislative authority. The Senate could amend the bill, but they haven't.
Right.
In the end, this CR is more of a funding bill. It's a test of constitutional muscle. Speaker Johnson drew the line, the Senate blanked, and now the question is, will the Democrats cross it?
Or rewrite it. Because governance isn't about ultimatums, it's about outcomes. And, you know, more often than not, one sentence or one word.
We touched on last week about the word shall. But
right.
Yeah, so I guess the question becomes is, so could one sentence or word solve the shutdown?
Only if both sides agree on what it means. It was a good conversation, Eric. I wanted to sink my teeth into this issue and understand it more. I think we were able to do that. Other than that, do you have anything else?
Not really. I guess if there's one thing, it's this. And it's the bottom line. We're a nation founded on laws, and our laws have to be followed. In this instance, I think the Dems are overplaying a hand they're bound to lose.
Well, and here we go. You know, you're at a standstill basically the American people are being held hostage, and they're gambling with our money. And it's not fair to us. They're doing us a disservice as our voices, elected officials, to represent what we want. And at this point, it's become a game. It's the red versus the blue, and that's just not the way it's supposed to be.
Well, I agree that it's not supposed to be that way, which is why I point out that we are a nation of laws, and you can't bring your certain emotions into it when it's outside the bounds. Again, if you want to support this, do it out in your own pocket, on your own time, and your own dime. It's no different than any one of us at work. We've got things we would rather be doing.
Sure.
But whatever it is, caring for a duck we found on the side of the road, and we're taking time away from our job to go talk to somebody on the phone about a duck that we found, and it's not That's not what we're there for, right?
Correct.
And that's not what the politicians are there for. I know it was kind of like a weird analogy,
But no, you're right. I mean, your employer shouldn't be paying for that. It's not their choice. It's not their will. It's not what it's intended to do. You're welcome to do it, but it's out of your own pocket, and that's the point of this. So,
and that's why I wanted to kind of like get my teeth sunk into this, as well as trying to understand what exactly is going on. Last night you sent me an email, and I did respond to it with a number of different things. I went out and I downloaded the actual CR, which is what prompted to have this conversation tonight. It's not political bias in this conversation. It is what it is.
right.
It's how it's being managed, and sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. But like you said, the division itself shouldn't be so vast over the fact that the American people come first. These are taxpayer funds from the American people. They should only go to the American people,
Right.
not people that have broken our laws to get here. And that's my problem with it all. Face the bellwether that you guys created, and make the change that you should be making in accordance with your oath. It's literally that simple.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know if one sentence could change it, but here's the other point. I don't even think that they would dare put that in there. And that's how sad this whole conversation becomes.
Right.
It's literally that simple. But if they did do that, that would back the Republicans up against every wall. And and if the Republicans didn't move on just that one thing alone to show their flexibility, I think that would turn the tides even on the next election.
Absolutely.
You think about that, because it would bring sanity back into that side
and
of the
that's
house.
just it. That it just shows you what you have leading this country as elected officials, that nobody's willing to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
The two-party system is about, I look at it as a checks and balance as well. So there's got to be oppositions to ideas. You can't just let one idea run away and monopolize the whole country. And that's the beauty of what we have in our elected officials. But when they come to the sandbox and refuse to play, and they're getting a paycheck on the taxpayer's dime, that's not okay with me.
And unfortunately for them, the timing is off. They don't have the power. They have the rules to follow. The Republicans have the con, and that's what it is.
Right.
And the Republicans are well within the Constitution.
Absolutely.
And how they're managing it. I think the Democrats are outside of that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's my political point on it. But anyway, so yeah, for this purpose of this episode, I think we pretty much covered everything and wrapped it up in a nutshell. And without further ado, I think I'm good. So
yeah, that's it. I hope we brought a little enlightenment to some of the listeners who didn't really know what was going on, or maybe didn't care, but now kind of see what's going on. But with that being said, my name is Rich, and I'm a +1.
And I'm Eric. I'm a +1. Thanks for listening. That was a good podcast.
Yeah. So we're
still
live.
recording.
Yeah. So that will go to, I think we'll end up putting that on our Spotify, but
Should we clip farm that too?
yeah, we'll figure out how to do that. But yeah, we still got one viewer, and it's probably me.
Or me.
So I'm going to end the live video now, but I hope you guys that watch this video later on get a little bit of knowledge out of what we just discussed. And as always, we appreciate the support. Check us out on www.56plus1.com. We got obviously the Facebook page you guys know about, but we have Instagram, we have a YouTube channel, and we also have been putting a lot of time onto our TikTok channel. So like, follow, and share. It just helps us out a lot. We just need to get the word out there, and the more people that we can reach, I think the stronger the American we the people become.
The like, follow, and shares, I think, are critical.
Oh,
right.
absolutely.
I didn't know anything about this stuff, but as we've been seeing, the more that we put out there, the more viewers we're reaching, right? And the more active in the algorithm we're becoming. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's the same old people that kind of see our stuff, and we appreciate the +1s. It's amazing to have the loyal people that watch and listen and contribute to what we're doing. But obviously, if you're a +1, you want the word to get out there, because the more of us there are, the better our future looks.
Right. It's all just education. We're arming you with education. We're being educated ourselves.
Oh, 100%. We're learning as we go. I'm learning how to read. I mean,
and talk.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Eric, that was another good week session. I appreciate the research you put into that, and we will see you guys here next Thursday night
Next
with
Thursday.
Christina and Shannon for our next episode of This Is America.
So I need to bring the other microphone. Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.